Maximum alert. The United States is on fire internally, and this could change the course of the war. Have you ever wondered what happens when an external war starts triggering an internal explosion inside the world's biggest power? Could protests actually bring down an entire military strategy? And more, could this force a radical shift in the conflict with Iran? Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and hit like now, because what you're about to see may explain the next moves in this global crisis, and you need to understand this before it's too late. Now, pay very close attention, because the situation has become even more tense and dangerous. The United States is facing a massive wave of protests known as No Kings, a name that says it all. A direct rejection of what many see as an authoritarian shift under Donald Trump. And we're not talking about small, isolated events. We're talking about millions of people in the streets, simultaneous demonstrations across multiple cities, with iconic places like Times Square completely packed. Regions like Minnesota have become true epicenters of this popular uprising, and the reasons go far beyond the war. People are angry about the rising cost of living, stricter immigration policies, heavy use of executive orders, and a growing sense that institutions are under pressure. But the central point is clear. The war against Iran has become one of the biggest triggers of this internal crisis, and that pressure is now hitting the political core of the government. The popularity of Donald Trump has dropped to around 36%, an extremely dangerous number in an election year. And here's what many overlook. It's not just opponents criticizing. Cracks are starting to appear within his own conservative base. This becomes even more evident when we look at a key event, CPAC. For the first time in a decade, the president didn't show up. Neither did his top advisors. That's a strong signal that something is off behind the scenes. Still, the event featured major figures like Flavio Bolsonaro and Reza Pahlavi. And this is where things get even more interesting. Reza Pahlavi was direct. He openly defended the fall of the Iranian regime, making it clear that in his view, there is no room for negotiation. In other words, while some talk about diplomacy, others are already thinking about regime change. Meanwhile, Flavio Bolsonaro hinted at something that could directly impact Brazil, a foreign policy more aligned with the United States, including pressure on institutions and closer strategic ties, especially regarding critical minerals. This shows the conflict isn't isolated. It can influence political decisions across multiple countries. And while the United States faces internal pressure, the external situation is getting worse. Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia are increasingly concerned about Iran's military advances and are pushing Washington for a tougher response. At the same time, the Pentagon is reportedly considering that a ground operation is becoming more likely, and that changes everything. Because a ground invasion isn't like airstrikes. It means direct confrontation, more casualties, higher costs, and a greater risk of regional escalation. And Iran is preparing. There are reports that the country has targeted U.S. military assets at Prince Sultan Air Base. In addition, an extremely alarming measure has emerged, lowering the minimum recruitment age to 12. This signals one thing clearly: preparation for a long and possibly total war. Now put all of this together. Massive protests inside the United States, declining popularity, divisions within the conservative base, international pressure for stronger action, intense military movement, and an opponent that shows no signs of backing down. The result is an explosive scenario. And here comes the most important question. Will the U.S. government pull back due to internal pressure, or will it escalate the war even further to regain political strength? Because history shows that leaders under internal pressure sometimes intensify external conflicts to shift the narrative, but that can spiral completely out of control. And there's more. This conflict could open space for other global players like Russia to expand influence while the United States gets trapped in yet another war. In other words, this is not just a regional crisis, it's a potential reshaping of the global balance of power. Now, I want to hear from you.
Can these protests really force the United States to change strategy, or do you think the war will continue despite all this internal pressure? Drop your opinion below. This debate is just getting started. And don't forget, subscribe and hit like now, because the next developments could be even more decisive, and you need to be ready to understand every move in this dangerous game.